Honey, we need to talk, Selma said to me as we were driving back home after dropping off our daughter Ashley at college. We'll be home in Rocky Mount, North Carolina in an hour, so we'll have plenty of time to talk. It was an uncomfortable ride, though. Yes, I think we should, I replied. I knew what she was going to say. You still haven't fully forgiven me, even after 8 years. I think we need to see a psychologist again. We should be able to put this behind us and look forward to our future, growing old together, traveling and spoiling future grandchildren. I was thinking about this trip home. I've been thinking about this for the last 8 years, shortly after that fateful day. The day I found out that my wife was cheating on me. It was in the spring, 8 years ago. I was running some errands for work when out of the corner of my eye I saw something bright yellow. I looked and saw a new yellow Nissan Xterra in the parking lot of the Doubletree Hotel. We had just bought this car 6 months before, so the yellow color caught my attention. Parked next to her was a slightly different shade of yellow Pontiac Aztek. Our friends, Jim and Sheila Henderson, bought it a few months ago. Selma and Sheila must be having lunch at the hotel restaurant, I thought to myself. I'll just pop in and say hi. So I pulled into the lot and parked next to my wife and Sheila's cars. I entered the restaurant and looked around. I didn't see them, but there was a table that looked like 2 people had just eaten there. They must have gone to the toilet, I thought. So I headed to the entrance of the hotel where the toilets were. I waited there for about 5 minutes. I must be waiting in the wrong place, I thought. They were probably leaving the hotel as I was entering the other entrance. So I walked to the entrance and looked outside. Both cars were still parked there, and there was no one around them. I turned around and saw my wife holding hands with Sheila's husband, Jim. Jim then leans in and kisses her passionately. They then turn to the front desk and return the room key card. I was overwhelmed, to say the least, but I wasn't paralyzed by inaction. I made a remark to the couple standing at the counter. I turned him around and yelled, "You bastard!" and hit him right in the nose. My wife gasped, and I turned to her and said, "And you cheating bitch! Don't come home tonight! I can't promise I won't do the same to you." I turned and ran out of the hotel. I quickly walked towards our cars. There were several dividers in the parking lot that had trees on them and were filled with palm-sized landscaping rocks. I picked one up and threw it right at Jim's car windshield. The impact left a large dent, and a web of cracks cascaded out of it. I jumped into my car and drove out of the parking lot. I was so nervous that a couple of blocks later, I had to pull into a McDonald's parking lot to try to calm down. As I sat there trying to relax, my phone rang. I looked at the number. It was Selma. I screamed, "Bitch!" and turned off the phone. Then I said out loud to someone unknown, "I don't want to talk to you, slut." How long did it last? I thought. They definitely looked quite comfortable with each other. Besides, they didn't look like they were trying to sneak in unnoticed. Their willingness to kiss while standing at the reception desk was telling enough to know they'd been fooling around for quite some time. I should have told Sheila. She needed to hear it from me before Jim or Selma tried anything. I turned on the phone again, and there were already 3 messages. I ignored them and called Sheila. She was a homebody and only worked part-time at the library while her children were in school. I hope she had a day off today, or at least she can answer the phone. "I was lucky," she replied. "And how do I tell her that her husband is a cheating snake? I've always been somewhat of a straight person, so I did the straight thing." "Oh, hi, Kurt." Then she asked, "How can I help you?" She was in her work mode, and so this expression just came naturally. "Sheila, I don't know how to tell you this, but I just caught Jim and Selma checking out of the hotel. They were very affectionate, so I have no doubt that they cheated on us." She gasped and said, "Not again." "Well, he just screwed himself to the wall." "Wow, that wasn't the answer I was expecting." I said in confusion. "It's not the first time. In fact, as far as I know, this is the 3rd time. After the last one, I was drawn up post-marriage agreement, and we both signed it. Any deception by either of our parties meant that the scammer walked away with nothing and had to contribute to household expenses and pay child support based on a percentage of income at that time. He will pay the mortgage, child support, and spousal support. He screwed up. I knew it would happen again, but he begged me. He didn't want to be a part-time dad. Well, that's who he will be now. She was furious. However, I could tell she probably thought about it a lot the first 2 times. When she mentioned children, it got me thinking. Our children, Jason and Ashley, were the same age as Sheila and Jim's children, Ethan and Emily. They were 12 and 10 years old, respectively. I knew I wanted a divorce, but I also knew I didn't want to be a part-time dad. Sheila then asked, "How are you, Kurt?" Honestly, I kind of went numb. I don't know what to think or what to do. I think I'll need to talk to a lawyer and see what my options are. I hate to say it, Kurt, but Selma will probably get custody of the kids and the house. You'll be a part-time dad. I know you love your children. Maybe you and Selma can work things out. I don't know. I'm just so angry right now that I can't even imagine how I'll end up in the same room with her. Believe me, I know. I was in this state. I can't say I'm numb to it, but having been through it twice, I'm not surprised and therefore not as emotional about it. But I'm going to throw it on the coals. When he gets home, he'll probably have a broken nose. I hit him pretty hard. There was a lot of blood, I told her. It serves him right, she said in a sharp tone. Then she said more softly, I'm sorry, Kurt. I'm sure he started it all. Maybe you can figure this out. I don't know. I didn't have enough time to think about it. At this point, I need to start thinking about my children and what is best for them. And Kurt, don't forget to consider what's best for you. I appreciated her insight. She had a lot more time to think about it than I did, more time to look at it more objectively. I talked to a lawyer. The sad truth was that unless I could prove that Selma was an unfit mother, or dangerous, or abusive, to our 10 and 12-year-old children, she would likely have been awarded custody of our children. And I'd be stuck, being a part-time dad, paying house and child support all the time. We made about the same amount of money, so there wouldn't be any spousal support, but it was a hollow victory if I couldn't be there for my kids. So I decided to deal with it. I wouldn't divorce her. She said she was sorry and didn't want a divorce either. She was from a single-parent family and did not want to subject our children to such a test. We went to counseling, which helped a little. I went to counseling, but other than being able to speak my mind, it was pointless. 3 years later, we went to counseling again because our marriage was not the same as before. No fuck, of course not. I still had trust issues. Her job didn't help with that. I was a chemist at Pfizer, and she was a sales representative, also at Pfizer. She was on the road most of the time and also attended conventions. In my opinion, she had every opportunity to deceive me. How did I know this wasn't true? Obviously, our marriage has never been the same. I decided in advance that the day we took Ashley to college, I would begin divorce proceedings. Now, 8 years after that fateful day, we were driving home after dropping off our daughter. Today was that day. Today was the day I was supposed to make a phone call to speak with a lawyer. She said, "Honey, we need to talk." Little did she know that I decided we needed to talk 8 years ago. Now that the children were gone, there was no reason to continue this deception. I have thought about this day many times. "Selma," I'll say, "I'm filing for divorce." I looked at Selma. She was still pretty, but the age lines were beginning to show that she was 45 years old. "Kurt," she said hesitantly, "I'm filing for divorce." What the fuck? I thought. She's stealing my thunder. I should be the first to drop the bomb on her. Now she's telling me she's filing for divorce? I regrouped. "Be calm," I told myself. "Okay," I said out loud without emotion. Disappointment was written all over her face. I don't think she expected my reaction like that. At least I surprised her with something. What? She thought I would beg her that we could work this out? That I will try harder, go to counseling more often? That after more than 20 years of marriage, I won't want to give up? She looked at me. She could see from the expression on my face that I felt the same way, that this marriage died 8 years ago. He just hasn't been declared dead yet. Then she said, "I was offered a position as a sales manager at Bristol-Myers Squibb in Atlanta. I'll be moving there in about 6 weeks. So she had been planning this for a while, too. I probably could have seen this coming. The last 8 years have not been perfect by any means. It took me almost 9 months to get to the point where I could have sex with her. And that's what it was. Sex. The emotional love connection we once shared has all but disappeared. I know it's all because of me, but she was the reason for it. The woman I loved unconditionally broke my trust. How could she do this to our family? She did this to our family. This wasn't just done to me. It forever changed the way our family would view life and relationships. Selma did not return home that fateful night. I never asked her where she was staying or with whom. I have to believe that unless she felt extremely guilty, she was staying at the DoubleTree Hotel. Why not? The room has already been paid for. I know from talking to Sheila that Jim returned home acting as if nothing had happened. He said he tripped while walking up the stairs and hit his nose on one of the steps. He also had 2 black eyes from the blow. She told him, "Grab your shit and get the hell out." He tried to deny everything, saying, "Nothing happened." Sheila knew better. When he tried to fight the post-nuptial agreement, I told Sheila to subpoena Selma to testify that they had indeed had sex on multiple occasions. Selma also tried to deny it at first, but I told her that if she thought I was so stupid, then we would get a divorce right away. She didn't want to do that to Ashley and Jason. She wanted them to grow up in a family with both parents. I told her, "You either admit your guilt to the judge, or we have no chance of reconciliation." Jim was furious that Selma had turned her back on him, but I told him, "The man admits his mistakes. Are you a man, Jim, or are you a piece of shit? A vile bastard?" Needless to say, we haven't spoken to each other since. He actually moved to Des Moines, moving with his job. So, he wasn't even a part-time father, he was an absentee father. He almost never visited his children. Our children knew something was wrong, but they adjusted to the new normal. I was not physically or verbally abusive towards their mother. I just didn't show her my love like I did before. Kurt, if I thought we still had a chance, I would have stayed and tried to make it work. Now that there are no children, only you and I are left, and you no longer love me as much as before, this will be the most correct thing, Selma said. I understand, I said. This was true. But how could a husband love his wife as before if she did not love him enough to reject another man's advances? Thanks to the consultations and discussions we had after that, I had a pretty good picture of what happened. First of all, they were our friends, so spending time with them was natural. Getting to know them and building rapport with them also felt natural. So when Jim came to see me one day while I was out, it was no big deal to sit and talk. Then, as they were finishing their conversation, Jim asked Selma, "Are you hungry? Would you like to join me at a nice steakhouse and saloon? This is the restaurant at the DoubleTree Hotel." Where I caught them. She agreed, and after half a dozen lunch dates, because Selma's schedule was flexible, he finally talked her into getting a room. She told me it was a forbidden thrill. It was the first time, but once Pandora's box was opened, and I didn't notice her guilt that night, it was easier to justify the casual afternoon indulgence. "It never took anything away from you," she said. "It was just harmless fun." Well, this harmless fun lasted about 3 months, and they got away with it until I caught them. Even now, I don't think she understands how much this betrayal hurt me. To love someone and trust openly, only for that trust to be trivialized by some harmless fun that changes the person. This is probably why I never reaffirmed my commitment to our marriage. Why commit yourself to someone who doesn't see a problem with his behavior? She probably decided that the only real problem was that she had been caught. It was quiet as we drove along the highway. Then I said, "At least our children did not grow up in an incomplete family." "Yes, I'm glad about it," she said. "Stability during adolescence is important, and they are better adjusted to life. I would do anything for my children." Then my first thought was to divorce her and move on with my life. Each of us could find someone else to whom we could devote ourselves, someone to love and share everything with, someone to trust. It all came back to trust. Our children saw that no matter what, they could be sure that when they were home each day, we would be there together. Stability in a sometimes unstable world, especially during the tumultuous years of puberty. I was glad I decided to stick it out for them. The Henderson children lived through some rebellious times. Since Sheila was a single mother and their father was absent, it was not easy for them. I kept in touch with Sheila. We talked on the phone about once a month or so. Since Jim left, I told her that if she needed anything fixed at home, I would see if I could save her some money. If I couldn't, I would share with her my thoughts on whether to repair or replace. She seemed to value my opinion. I was also pleased to see her children. Our children were the driving force behind our family's friendships. They were in the same classes, so even though they lived in a different area, there were many events we saw them at. I wish we had never started meeting them socially so Selma and I wouldn't be in this situation. However, would it be because of Jim, or would it be someone else? I'd like to believe it was Jim, which would at least give me some faith in the woman I love. I say love, not loved, because I still love her, just not as much or in the same way as before. It's strange how you define or set parameters for this. There are so many types of love, probably as many as there are different types of relationships. However, unconditional love is something I've been thinking about a lot lately. Does such a thing even exist? You could say that you love someone unconditionally, like your children. But if they started to disrespect you or, God forbid, physically or verbally abuse you and be actively negative towards you every time when you interacted with them, would you still love them? What if they told you, "We never want anything to do with you again," and cut you out of their life? Will you still love them unconditionally? Luckily, this is not something I have to agonize over. My relationship with my children is very strong. As if reading my thoughts, Selma said, "I'm glad that we have good children who love us. They have grown into wonderful adults and will one day become wonderful parents, and we will become grandparents." "That's true," I said. "They really did it. They showed respect to each of us and to those around us. They are well adjusted, and I had no concerns about their future. They would immediately integrate into society, taking an active part in making our world a better place to live. As I said before, Sheila's children went through some rebellious times. However, now they seem to be coming to their senses. I pray for them. As I thought about praying for them, I began to think about my faith. I've never been a very religious person, but when Selma cheated on me, I started praying to God. First, I prayed for understanding, then I prayed to make the right decision. Since then, I have been praying for strength to get through this. I know I should probably pray for the ability to forgive Selma, but I haven't seen any real repentance on Selma's part, so I wouldn't be able to make that jump, maybe ever. It might be easier to forgive her when we no longer have to see each other every day. People say absence makes the heart grow fonder. Perhaps separation will make the heart more conciliatory. I asked Sheila what she thought about this. She still has a lot of resentment towards her ex due to the fact that this happened several times. She told me, "There are days when I don't think about him at all." This is probably the closest I've come to forgiveness. It doesn't measure up, I know that. But fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, I'm just a fool. I wasn't scammed 3 times, but I was scammed for 3 months. This makes the guy doubt his powers of observation. This is probably another reason why I had a hard time trusting Selma after she cheated on me. If she did it again, what would I do? How was I supposed to know? That's why, as I sit here heading home, I'm thinking about how to trust again not only Selma, but any woman who may appear in the future. Once bitten, twice shy, so goes the saying. I know myself, and this expression will definitely become part of my personality in the future. Just another piece of my luggage that I will probably carry with me for the rest of my life. We will need to decide what to do with the house and everything in it, Selma said. They will put me in a furnished apartment for 6 months until I get settled, so I won't need any furniture, although I may need some when I get my own place. Some furniture. The whole house was filled with things she simply had to have. She could take it all for all I care. It will just be a reminder of her after she's gone. I didn't want this. What I wanted was to forget her. If I could forget her, I could forget what she did. We never forget, do we? I thought to myself. She will always be there, somewhere in the back of my mind. You can take everything. I don't want any of this, I said rather sharply. It was the first real emotion I expressed during the entire trip. Don't you want anything? She asked in a surprised tone. No. I'm starting all over again, with a clean slate, with a new canvas, to paint a different picture, I told her. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw sadness on her face. Do you hate me that much? She asked. No, I still love you. I will always love you in some way. But this chapter of my life is almost over. Time to start a new one, I declared. What about the children? She asked. Oh, they'll be there. In fact, they will be an important part of the new chapter, hopefully having children of their own soon. I intend to spoil my grandchildren, I said. It would be great to have grandchildren. I cannot wait. But first, they both need to finish college and find true love, she said. True love, I thought to myself. Does such a thing exist? Do we have kindred spirits? I thought Selma was my true love and my soulmate for life. It turned out that she had only been like this for about 15 years. Perhaps she never was like that. Perhaps it was all a pipe dream. It all went up in smoke in a matter of seconds, 8 years ago. We drove on in silence. After about 15 minutes, she said, I'm really sorry. For what? I asked. For everything, she answered. For all. How can someone regret everything? Did she regret that we had ever met? Did she regret that we started dating? Did she regret that we fell in love? Did she regret that we got married? What about children? Did she regret having them? Did she regret having the affair or that I caught her? Was she sorry that I just didn't accept it and let things go back to normal? Or did she regret divorcing me? I certainly don't regret it. I just wish she hadn't beat me to the punch. She was crying little by little. Why was she crying? It was she who decided to get a divorce. Me too, but she didn't know that. I think she cried because I took it so dispassionately, as if I didn't care. I didn't care. This worried me a lot. I was very concerned that I had wasted 8 years of my life waiting for my children to leave home. I really cared that I had gone all in with a woman who couldn't stay faithful to me. I really cared that all my life plans were ruined because she had to have a little harmless fun. I let her cry. I said nothing. I drove on in silence. For me, it was a calming silence. She didn't know what else to say, and I didn't want to tell her anything other than maybe, I hope someday you'll understand what you gave up, just so you could have some harmless fun. We arrived home and entered the house. She stayed downstairs while I went up to the master bedroom and began moving my clothes into Ashley's bedroom. Ashley pretty much took all of her stuff so she could have it in her dorm room. This room will last until Selma moves out, and then I'll go back to the master bedroom. We would put the house on the market, but in today's market, we would be lucky enough to sell it within 6 months, God willing. We took out a home equity loan last year before the property market crashed, so we'll be lucky to get what we owe from him. At least the children's education was funded for at least the next couple of years. Selma was in the kitchen, preparing dinner, I suspect. I was almost done moving all my stuff when she came upstairs. What are you doing? She asked dejectedly. She saw perfectly well what I was doing. I'm moving my things to Ashley's room, I said matter-of-factly. She looked at me and then asked a stupid question. Why? I turned away to put the last socks in the dresser and just looked at her. You didn't have to do that, she said. We could spend the next 6 weeks in the same bed. It will be best this way, I said without any emotion in my voice. Nothing should change, she said. We could still act like a normal married couple. For the last 8 years, we have not been an ordinary married couple. Of course, there were times when we laughed, had fun, and did what every married couple does. There were even good times during these years. There were times when I didn't even think about betraying her, but whenever we started doing something physical and sexual, the memories always came back. Our lovemaking was good, but it was never great after that. Deep down, I've always held back. I'm sure she felt it too. Selma, I said, in 6 weeks you will leave, but to tell the truth, you left me 8 years ago. I know it hurts. I saw it in her face. If she had any doubts about her decision to divorce, they are now gone. She knew I had no reservations. It was the right decision for both of us. She hesitated, turned, and then said, Dinner will be ready in about 15 minutes. The next 6 weeks were filled with packing. We spoke with a realtor about selling our house. He said that in the current market, a sale could take up to 6 months or more. I would stay until the house is sold. Breaking news to children was something we did together. We went to each of their colleges and took each of them to a nice restaurant. Jason took it the hardest. We all got wet-eyed when we discussed divorce. It would be friendly. Even though we still love each other, we have grown apart, we told him. He will find out the truth a couple of months later when he asks me why we are getting a divorce. I couldn't lie to him, and I told him everything. Ashley's reaction surprised us both. We sat down and started eating. She could tell something was wrong. We asked Jason not to tell her anything, but I'm sure he mentioned something that got her into that mood. Selma said, "Honey, we need to talk." She answered, "Yes, I think we should." There wasn't much emotion in her voice. "Honey, it's not easy to say." She hesitated and then said, "Your father and I are getting a divorce." After a second or so, she said, "Fine." I had a flashback from 8 years ago. My daughter was more like me than I realized. She dealt with the situation stoically, completely without emotion. This attitude caused Selma to stutter when she tried to console Ashley. Ashley said, "I understand, Mom. I'm not a little girl anymore. I can handle this. I thought we protected our children from our problems 8 years ago." These comments from her made me think that no matter how hard we tried to hide it, she knew. Perhaps she overheard our argument and kept it to herself all this time. I felt sorry for her. She shouldn't have had to worry about the problems we were having at such a young age. The rest of the meal passed in a somber mood. She really seemed to agree with all of this. We were the ones who had a hard time dealing with our daughter's reaction. The day came when Selma left for Atlanta. We said almost nothing. She told me, "I still love you." I told her, "I wish you success in your work and in your life." Then she said, "If you need anything, let me know." Selma, we will see each other at special family moments, graduations, weddings, and the birth of our grandchildren. Let's be cordial and pleasant to each other. Of course we will, Kurt, and we'll both spoil our grandchildren like we always planned. I smiled and said, "I know that we will do so." She smiled at this too. It was a little surreal wandering around the empty house that night. She took photographs, trinkets, and a few pieces of furniture, as well as her clothes and jewelry. This made the house seem emptier than it actually was. However, to be fair, she took some things out of the house 8 years ago that made it seem emptier back then too. Weeks turned into months, and finally the divorce was granted. No fanfare, just a letter in the mail saying I was now a single man. I didn't celebrate as much as I could. I felt like I had somehow failed. I haven't heard anything from Selma, but I'm sure she received the same notice. There was probably nothing special about it. I'm sure she's already moved on and started dating again. However, I was in no hurry. Ashley called me the next week. I think Selma must have called her. Ashley wanted to sit down and talk to me. I told her, "Of course, honey. Can you come home this weekend? Then we can talk." "Yes, Dad. I'll be home on Friday evening." As we sat down for our conversation, she told me something that made me sad for my daughter. "Dad, I knew something was wrong more than 8 years ago. I overheard you and your mom arguing. I didn't understand this at the time. You accused her of cheating. Even earlier, I knew that cheating was wrong. I just couldn't understand why it was so important. I didn't understand this until a few years later you were screaming about your mom cheating on you with another man. I also heard that you won't get a divorce for Jason and me. We discussed everything that happened. She understood what I did and why. She told me she never told Jason. She knew Jason couldn't handle it. He idolized his mother. My daughter was an amazing person. She would be a great mom. 3 years later, I finally met the woman who completely changed my life. I was 48 years old and a little hesitant about getting involved with someone. I met a 40-year-old woman named Jackie. She was a divorced woman with 2 children, actually grown up, 18 and 20 years old, a girl and a boy, respectively. 6 years ago, she decided not to wait for the children to grow up and divorced her unfaithful husband. When we first started dating, having been set up on a blind date, we both still had trust issues. I didn't want to waste her time, so on the first date I told her all about my past failure and told her, I have trust issues because of this. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and said that she understood completely. We moved slowly, trying to keep ourselves safe, but at the same time, trying to open up to each other, little by little. After 6 months, we finally trusted each other enough to take our relationship to the next level. To say I was nervous would be an understatement. She was the first woman I had been with other than my wife in over 25 years. We clumsily made our way through it, laughing from time to time at the awkwardness of various situations. However, we finally found our rhythm and spent a few enjoyable hours exploring each other's bodies and what we each liked and didn't like. Our relationship progressed, and her children, Aaron and Julie, seemed to accept me and even love me. My children met her, and her children, and liked them too. Our kids even started going out for fun together and seemed to get along. I couldn't be happier. After 2 years of dating, we got married. It was a small ceremony, but it was joyful. Jackie and I spent a week in Hawaii, enjoying the sights and each other. It's 2022, and I'm sitting here thinking about my life. Jackie and I just welcomed our 3rd grandchild into the world. Her son Aaron got married 3 years ago and had children almost immediately. Not to mention her daughter Julie got married 18 months ago and has already given birth. It made me think about my own children, Jason and Ashley. Jason had 3 serious relationships, but when women started pressuring him for commitment, he couldn't handle it. Each of them broke up with him, looking for someone with whom she could spend the rest of her life. Ashley got married 4 years ago, but was adamant that she would not have children. Her husband didn't feel the need to change that. He liked their freedom. So, I spoil my grandchildren from my second marriage. I don't know if I will ever have grandchildren from my own children. After talking to Jason and Ashley, I'm a little doubtful about this. I don't see Ashley changing her mind, and I think Jason will remain single for life. Selma never remarried, preferring to date instead, although as time went on, her boyfriends became older and older than her. She continues to pester Jason and Ashley about their grandchildren. I think she will continue to be disappointed, both in anticipation of grandchildren and in her single life. I ran into Sheila last week. She told me that she has already been a grandmother 5 times. Her children were both married and led wonderful lives. It appears that after their tumultuous teenage years, they have settled down, gotten degrees, gotten good jobs, and found their soulmates. Hearing this made me think, did I do the right thing with my children? Did 8 years of marriage, just for the sake of the children, cause irreparable damage to their psyche? Is this why one cannot make a commitment and the other does not want to bring children into this world? I just don't know. But one thing keeps coming back to me. This is what Sheila said on that fateful day. I said, at this point, I need to start thinking about my children and what is best for them. She answered, and Kurt, don't forget to consider what's best for you. I wonder how my life and the lives of my children would be different if I followed this advice. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.